think they offered that this year.
Yeah,
I don't know, maybe they
can
did.
access it later.
Yeah, so they'll send links out to everybody.
I gotcha.
So I'm gonna open it.
Yeah.
We're conflicting with lunch.
No, I think they staggered the lunches.
Yes.
Yes, sections are going different times.
That's rough, man.
Okay, so
Out here. Then we switch.
you can just,
So yeah, if you just like click it and then it'll open it in the browser.
Yeah, I can.
me?
Oh, yeah,
Oh.
yeah, if you wanna, so like here. Maybe it's a control click. Yes. That should have opened the second tab.
Well, we were thinking he might have to sign in his credentials, but try the third one. I think the third one doesn't need credentials, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Hmm. Can you,
It's just SharePoint.com, so I'm almost thinking
can you?
it might be one of those.
Try just opening up,
Here, I can do it.
can you right click it? Maybe? And put it into Edge, like paste it. So I think the issue is it may have not copied the actual hyperlink.
Oh my gosh, what is happening? Go back to your Word document. Right click.
So I think they've been taking the sign-in sheets, the speakers have been taking them, so I'm not sure. That's what they're after, but
Okay.
Oh, well, it actually had an option to open hyperlink.
Oh, that's what we should do.
Yeah,
This.
right there. There we go. Something's happening. All right. All right, we're getting somewhere.
I've been just sitting it on like one of the first chairs.
Be useful.
When you see proof, you just let her just rewind it. I won't be available.
What is this, man?
Two-factor authentication. When you do Microsoft, you have to two-factor. So the backup is, I have this, because you have digital port, correct?
On your laptop?
Yeah, I was told to bring this in here as a backup.
You just ignored your call. I entered it. It said answer it.
I tell you like press one or something.
Huh? Oh, his was having a call.
So what do we need to do?
Well, unless you want to go through the authentication, because it's asking for a two-factor authentication.
Like text your phone or something.
So
If you listen to the call, it might tell you to
Yeah.
press one.
so you would have to
Oh, yeah, you
try to
can
sign in.
have
or-
text.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's gonna send that to your phone. Hopefully that's the phone you set up. All right, success. All right, one down.
Cool.
With their powers combined.
I like it. I can sign into this one here.
Set before you press it, like right when you're finished, make sure we sign out of your tabs.
Yeah. What?
All right, success second time. Now what's the third one?
Third one is gonna be.
All right, are we there?
I think so. Excellent, thank
Okay,
you.
You want to go ahead and play the video real quick, just make sure the audio doesn't works. 'Cause everything else is working. Okay,
You're the man.
is that good?
Thank you.
Oh, she seemed to do all the work. I'm just here to
It's a team,
assist.
team
I'm
effort,
supporting. All right, sounds good.
ready to roll.
Is the recording already gone?
Yep.
Yes. Awesome.
Ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Alrighty. Yeah, thanks for your patience. Thanks for coming. We just realized it's lunch, so thanks for us today. I'm Ben Chandler, Dyron, Hamlin. We both work as consultants with GHD. So what we like to do today is we get a lot of requests from clients that say, hey, we need a better solution for our auditing program. We have all these, really stringent reporting requirements for EPA. What's a better strategy for us to kind of comply with those requirements? And a lot of the solutions we've come up with involve data collection. So a lot of big data sets that like I said, people are reporting. So what we'd like to do today is we've got about 5 examples of projects we've worked on where clients have done that and said, hey, what's a better solution? So what we're doing is we've entered, applications or solutions rather that involve digital tools in most cases. So hopefully this will be something that maybe you can take back to your facilities to think about implementing or, give you some ideas on some things that are useful for you. So we're going to go through these. If there's some tools that you've used before that we're presenting on, you've got comments, please share. We don't definitely open to have some good dialogue and discussion. So the first one we're going to talk about is a system that's an audio and visual. So one of the things we've had a lot of requests is when we do on-site visits. So let's say you have an EH&S audit. We do a lot of that type of work for our clients. You go on site, you spend 3 or 4 days going around the facility, looking at records, come up with action items based on gaps you find in different programs. So typically that's done, with a person, at the facility doing that. We actually had an example where a client that's got a big footprint in the US, but also had a facility down in Mexico. Taro is kind of 100 miles or so north of Mexico City. The initial request is for us to send a person down to that facility, spend a week on site, going through, looking at their chemical inventories and understanding what kind of exposures that the workers could have during different things. It's a chemical blending facility. So they were, required to dump materials into vessels and mix. So there's a lot of potential for chemical exposures, mainly inflation. The intent again was to have someone go down there. This was 2020. Of course, that's when COVID was, restricting a lot of travel and access. So at that point, for us to go down to that facility, you would have to come back. I think the quarantine was like 21 days. And so that was just not a good option. So they said, well, what can we do? So we came up with this device, which is basically, if you look here, That's the camera. Then it's got right here, which is talking to it, so it's a microphone. It also has a camera so you can see the visual as well. So that was our solution. Hey, let's send this down, have the HNS manager for this facility, wear this device, and we're gonna do the audit, remotely. And so what this allows you to do is it actually functions through MS Teams. So you call up on Teams. I was actually remote in the US. We had the HNS manager with the device on, with the camera looking forward. Went through the facility, we were able to talk to employees, do interviews, and basically do everything that we were gonna do in person remotely. So it was a good solution in this case. We spent a couple of days going around. Other thing was the challenge was in this instance, everyone spoke Spanish. I don't speak Spanish, so that was a problem. So we actually had an interpreter. So we had one individual, we'd ask a question in English, they would translate, ask in Spanish, and get that answer back. So it was a little challenge, but we made it work. So I feel like we could make that instance work. This thing, is capable of working. So we've implemented other sites as well. So some of the things to think about, it's hands-free, so you can walk around freely, have a notepad, take notes. 360 degrees, so you actually have a couple of different options. One camera that fits on the hard hat at the top, so you can see 360. This one was forward facing, so whatever that person was looking at, was directly displayed on our screen. It's pretty easy, pretty easy to use. We sent it down, had a training session that lasted a few hours. They're pretty much ready to go. Also allows multiple users. So in this instance, I was remotely, we had another person from our company as well on the call. We had someone from our digital team on the call as well, just to make sure if there's some kind of technical issues, they could troubleshoot. And then the client had someone there at the facility on the call as well as someone back in the US, their corporate headquarters. So we had a team of about 6 people all participating in this audit at the same time.
A little bit tedious staring at the screen for an entire day.
Yeah.
What else? Sorry.
Yeah, so here's some of the benefits. I mean, reduces travel costs. I mean, anytime our clients that have someone local, if there's not an opportunity to do that, travel costs are always something that comes into factor. Minimizes the time on site, so you can do a lot of different things for this program. You also have flexibility. If you want to do a day of a particular audit, you can do that and stop, do some things, come back to days later. Usually when you have an audit, or something like this, you can put this into the same visit. This gives you some flexibility as well. It creates a record. So this was actually really something that I really enjoyed as well. Whenever you go out to the facility, you're taking a lot of notes, you're taking photos. I don't know about you guys, every time I get back, there's always something I forgot to look at this, or, I'll go back to my notes, maybe the details not quite there. And we had a log, so we had a video that's recorded. I'll play you a little snippet here at the end. So you can go back and say, what was that thing I was looking at? What was that take ID number? I didn't write it down. You can go back, find it in that video, take it down. So it's a good record to have. To go back and look at. And then, allows direct communication. So you were able to have a large team that you want participating in a audit like this. So I'm gonna play now that we've done all these things. So this is I'll just kind of move it to here. So that's one of the people participating in the audit, and that's who I'm communicating with. And so this is one of their tank farms out behind in the back. And you can see at the bottom, those are all the people that are participating in the call as well. This is their warehouse, so they had a lot of chemical storage questions that we had. Okay. It's always great to hear your voice. No one likes.
Sound like that?
No one likes. Okay, here's a good example of where we had the workers adding different raw materials to their mixing tank. Okay. Anyway, that's. Yeah, so that's our first example. So again, does anyone use these tools before? Yes, RealWare is the one we wore in this particular instance, but there's several different manufacturers kind of with similar type cameras that are out there.
Have you all used it? Oh. You start thinking about like real sustainability impacts as well. That's parts of the travel, what that you get from just the logistics, the cost, obviously, it's one piece of it, but I mean, it's really simplifying things for us, not having to fly on.
Yeah.
And
It's the internet service, right? Connectivity.
I don't think we have an issue down there, right?
No, as long as you have a wireless connection, you're good.
Just hotspot or phone or.
Yeah, I think I think we use a hotspot. So it's on their phone, on the iPhone.
Does it connect directly to Teams from the headset?
Yep. I mean, it's the same way we're recording this now. It's just really simple to use. Yeah, after we got done, we had a little debrief, so we ended up going to the conference room, debriefing like you would normally do on an audit. So
I'd say that's probably the biggest downside is just the tedious nature of sitting in front of your computer, like we've all experienced for hours on end.
yeah,
Instead of walking around, you have to sit down.
yeah,
But it's at least something entertaining to kind of be involved with as opposed to just, standard. We just get to see some interesting things.
we took some breaks. I mean, we break every hour or so because it just, yes, it's a lot to go through, but we got through it.
Yeah, like, it could be, audit situation you said, but, have used it just on the phone and stuff.
Mhm.
If somebody describing you something
Mhm.
on the phone versus they're showing you something.
Yep.
On Teams or something like that.
Yep.
You get a clear picture very
Yep.
vividly what's going on.
Yep.
Versus they're just telling you.
Yeah, we didn't want to just get through it. We wanted it to be a value. We wanted it to work out. So we think we did. This that seemed to be, adequate enough for what we're trying to do. Lockout, tag out.
Yes, we do a bunch of lockout, tag out evaluations for different firms. One of the things we found there was a bit, it seemed of a gap on was having a clear and easy way to document those procedures. The expectation now is to have those pictures right associated with the asset itself. The procedures, laid out in an orderly fashion. So we built a database, not complicated. We use FileMaker as kind of a platform for a lot of different applications. So this FileMaker applications, it's just shy of open source. It's very inexpensive means of storing data. One of the things that we do through that then is go take the assets in the order that the operator or the person that's going to be conducting the maintenance. So it allows them then on the back end, we can have this printed off to a paper copy. There's a lot of folks that are still, working in the field on these assets are a lot more comfortable with a paper copy than taking an iPad out in the field. But of course, there's limitations there, intrinsic safety and things of that nature. But you know, just as an example project, we've done this for a couple of large data centers. For a large, retailer based in Arkansas that shall remain nameless until Ben pulls up the website. But yeah, we've looked at, you know, over 10,000 of their assets in these data centers, millions of square feet of really large cooling systems. So not just electrical hazards, but a lot of, you know, hydraulic, pneumatic, different hazards that are associated with this data center. And it can get kind of complicated. We have certain assets that had like, what, 15, 20 different locks and tags that would have to be applied just to do maintenance on that one particular asset. And, you know, we've also looked at a couple of the other facilities for this particular client, but just the mass of data that comes into that. Other things that I think we've found have been important is that there's a universal change. For example, a piece is going to be replaced by another part from a different manufacturer. That can be propagated through all of their procedures, you know, basically with one change, as opposed to going in and editing each one of those procedures, and having to, you know, make that change individually, which is just, I can't imagine the nightmare of logistics to get through that. So that's just kind of a, you know, overview of what it does, kind of the purpose behind it. Also, you know, just a big red flag there. You're going to need, you know, for this asset that's on the screen, 7 locks and tags. You go out with your box of locks and tags and you get out and say, okay, well, I still have one left over. What did I miss? So things like that to try to flag the employees. Do you want to show it on? Yeah, just so real quick, I mean, OSHA requires a review of your lockout tagout procedures on a periodic basis. You know, this helps demonstrate compliance. You know, a lot of times, I think those procedures, especially if they're not in electronic form, they're gonna get a little outdated. You know, and that is something that from a compliance perspective presents a risk. And again, I think I talked quite a bit about the operational, you know, benefits of it, so.
This is what it looks like. I mean, we record it all on an iPad, so you take it, you know, to the asset, you know, activate your camera, would embed that photo. So you would take, in this instance, that's a big generator. So that those had several lockout points as well. Some of them had, you know, 4,000 plus volts going to power it. So it's pretty significant, you know, electrical lockout points. And so, yeah, like Dyron mentioned, it's a great tool. I mean, what the intent would be, you know, if you had a maintenance person go out, they need to change something or shut down that piece of equipment, they could take this iPad with them, pull up the procedure. It's got, you know, detailed photos, and so they can, you know, they can make those points, find the photo, find the lockout point. Usually they're upstream electrical cabinets, somewhere in different locations. You have, you know, I think these had 5 or 6 electrical sources you had to lock out. Some were breakers, some were disconnects, some were panels, like I mentioned, other rooms. And so with the level of detail you're able to document, it really simplify things instead of them having to go chase down all these sources. It's just right there, you know, very consistent, concise document. Like Dyron mentioned, OSHA, their lockout tagout standard, I don't know if you guys have experience with that. It's pretty detailed. I mean, OSHA requires a procedure for all your assets for the most part, with a few exceptions based on, you know, what kind of voltage and things like that. But another thing they do is they want you to audit them every year, so you've got to do a review. So this system will allow for that too. Instead of printing out, going in and making these changes, you need to review, you can document the audit and make the changes, you know, in real time on an iPad. So when you have, in this particular instance, 10,000 assets, that's a big undertaking.
Yeah, I would say that the people, the frontline people now that are responsible for the maintenance too, seems like something we find is they may not have the same degree of familiarity with the equipment as, in this case, probably the management. And so management folks have been in the facility for multiple years. Oftentimes your frontline people, you know, they might be, we encountered a few of them for first day on the job, you know, a week into the job, just kind of learning really along with us. So it was some really tedious work, you know, when you're chasing where those had from and kind of the sources of energy. But we flagged, I think, the benefit of doing that as an annual audit, and maybe part of the rationale behind OSHA requiring that is we ran across a couple of things that were not fully understood even at the facility level, right? So it's when you really do that stepwise, walk back, it is potentially helpful. There was one instance where it was a sub panel that was shut off by accident that had interrupted some data service. So if you ever had a little hang up on Walmart.com one day, that might have been the cause of it. But we were able to find that, just by looking at the extreme detail.
This is what the database looks like. So it's all web-based, so you can go in. I mean, you just have a unique login and password. Anybody can access it. So in this case, our client Walmart, had different logins. So they didn't have the whole team with access. So they had certain people identified that can go in and access the records. And then they also have a way to control it to where, only certain people can make changes. What they didn't want to have is have 20 people going in and making all these different changes. There needs to be some kind of consistency there. So, it allowed, and so the first section, as you can look here, they had an asset list with serial numbers, manufacturer. So all that information was pre-populated. So we were able to put that in the database before we even went out. So, as they add new assets, they can update it there and then create a new procedure. So ultimately, it's their program moving forward. So now they have ownership and complete rights to go in and change as needed. Any questions on that? It's very tedious. We spent weeks just going around taking photos.
Do y'all have response? Lockout, tag out, or teams? Yes. Ironically exhausted day. It's like I didn't do anything all day. My brain hurts.
Yeah, so another example, kind of going back to COVID, I know it's only been a few years since we experienced kind of some of the shutdowns and things that have happened, but we had a similar example where you had a large healthcare facility with a big footprint with multiple clinics and health centers throughout the US. And so, again, going back to OSHA, if you require respirators at workplace, you've got to do a lot of different things for the OSHA standard. But two things are you've got to have a medical clearance, so you've got to be medically qualified to wear a respirator. Then you got to do fit testing. So if it's a tight fitting respirator, you've got to do a fit test. So in this case, back when the CDC was requiring healthcare workers to wear N95 masks during the height of COVID, this particular client as well was impacted. So they were, faced with a pretty daunting task of fit testing, 5,000 plus employees at 250 different locations. How do you do that? I mean, so it's, well, we don't want to close our clinics down. We want to keep them open. What's the solution? And so what we came up with was sort of similar to the lockout tagout. Was doing a mobile application to collect data. So what we ended up doing is we would go to a facility. We partnered with an occupational physician group that would have physicians or licensed healthcare professionals available. So they would remote call in on a Teams call or something similar, and they would actually do the medical evaluation. There's a questionnaire you fill out. So that we would have room set up, separately where they would go in, do the medical qualifications portion of the respirator requirement. Then they come next door and we do fit testing. So we, in this case, we're doing the qualitative method. So where you actually spray the banana oil as the agent to smell. So that's what you see here is actually the worker with the N95 mask on, and then the person on the right is actually administering that test. So yeah, we were able to do that pretty quickly. We had several different trainers that were deployed to these different locations. So in any given week, we may Do this at 50 different locations, using different trainers that were locally. But again, we were able to find a good digital solution that allowed us to meet the requirements for the OSHA standard, collect the data quickly. All that data was logged on an iPad as well. We would print out a fit test record card to give to the employees. That way, they had a record of being fit tested, what type of respirator they were allowed to wear. And then, I mean, we actually had OSHA do some inspections of some of these facilities. So all these records were logged electronically in the database. And so if they go to a particular location, say, hey, I need to see proof that you did fit testing for all your employees. We need to see proof that you've trained your employees. We need to see proof that they've all been fit tested and medically qualified. We're able to pull those records out in real time and submit them to OSHA. In these cases, they were satisfied. And that's the other part I meant to mention is, in addition to the fit testing, we would also do the training. So OSHA's got a training requirement that says if you're required to wear respirators, you've got to train your employees on how to properly use them. So we would do that. So there's a way to accomplish all these things, one fell swoop, I guess. This particular clients continue to use the system even after COVID because I'm sure they got a great one. Some of the benefits, like I mentioned, accessibility. You can collect on those records really quickly and get them. You're not, going back and finding a paper copy. We're pretty. It was a pretty rewarding project for us personally, just because it allowed us to keep a lot of clinics open. This was a time when COVID, people were very nervous about health issues, things like that. So allowing people, throughout the U.S. to continue to have access to medical care was a positive thing. We were glad that we could do that on a personal level, I guess. And then, records review and auditing, so you can go back and see. Okay, that it's an annual requirement. So the fit testing, we did the initial fit testing, but every year we're going back, and most of these facilities are repeating this procedures as well. So it gives us an opportunity to go back and see which facilities are due for their next round of fit testing. Anything to add to that, Dyron? Yeah, so that's another example. So we'll kind of keep going. Another one also similarly related to COVID was we're able to have solutions in place to where back when travel restrictions and accessibility facilities were limited, we were able to come up with systems that we'll put in place to do health screening, so that you had temperature checks and questionnaires and things. We were able to have a mobile application to where we could collect that data in real time. That allowed us to keep other facilities open as well. So in particular, there was a large Toyota plant in the U.S. that had probably 500 to 600 workers per shift that were working. So we were able to keep that facility open. We also did a study similar to that same place where we outfitted workers with basically a tracking device, and so you could see throughout the workday where everybody was moving. So you can imagine a facility map, and then you can see little dots moving around. It was all GPS located. So you can see what we learned is it helped us kind of figure out what areas of the plant workers were congregating. Back when COVID was such a big issue, the whole intent was to distance people and kind of keep, minimize contact when possible. So we're able to figure out a lot of workers over here for some reason. Why is that happening? Okay, we're going to move the break room to this particular area to kind of limit interactions. And so it's pretty interesting exercise to kind of understand. I think it benefited the client beyond just the COVID. It's kind of understanding how to logistically lay out the plan to floating.
Yeah, I think a key for both of those is like things that are repeatable or that are happening in large quantities.
Yeah.
I think our default position has been, if we're gonna see that kind of volume, we need to start here, start with an electronic solution, because you start getting the paper piling up if you're not out in front of it. And because of the, the different tools that are available, it's easy enough, to do now. So like I know the front end of the respirator project, we had one of our digital folks spend a weekend basically building that solution. I mean, it can be fine tuned over time. You're gonna find some gaps and things, but I mean, it's just to us, it's become a no brainer. It's like, that's the step one on a kickoff of a project is, all right, what kind of digital solution can we put in? And oftentimes it's data collection. Let's create a structure for this data that's going to be coming in that will be useful for querying over time and just spending. I mean, we probably spent, like I said, a weekend actually doing physical development, but a few hours together kind of brainstorming, okay, what information is Ocean looking for, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it's, if you start thinking about a long-term solution, I mean, that's kind of how we look at, okay, this is how we're going to create it, but how is this going to be, is this tool still going to be useful 5 years from now? Things like that. So yeah, if you can get a good program in place at the onset, it's certainly going to help you out in the long term. We don't know to talk about this.
Yeah, so there have been increasing interest, especially as fence line monitoring is such a huge deal now. And just operationally speaking, looking at some facilities that are particularly subject to being impacted by wildfires. We had a facility, a group with a number of facilities that you can see on the map there. Basically, we built out some radii around each of those facilities, so you can kind of see where their footprint is out in the US West. And that's because if there's wildfires in the area, their warehouses are susceptible to being shut down or impacted, limited operations essentially. So they wanted to have means of kind of early warning for that. Now, there are a number of publicly available data sources that would incorporate things like, well, EPA's Air Now website that's got, various air quality indicators. One of the things that we've done with this is basically aggregated that air quality information alongside their facility information. So looking at their operations, what's going on at the facility, and basically, giving them early alerts. So built into this an alert notification system where, even from like a forecast perspective, your facility, is potentially at risk for the next X number of hours, and they're getting alerts on their phones, simplify that to where you're going to know if you've got an issue upcoming. We've talked about pulling in other kinds of data sources. There's a lot out there just from like publicly available. You're all familiar with like Purple Air, or Google actually has their own little air quality network. A lot of those sensors are really cheap little sensors that may or may not be giving you good data.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of a little tentative in terms of incorporating that data, but we've already kind of beta tested it, it's possible. So as those data networks get more finely resolved over time, I mean, it's just going to improve the picture of where things are. So this basically, they're using it operationally right now with data that we know is good quality. But that's kind of our future thing on that. So at some point you've got a finally resolved enough network that you pretty well know, what those air quality levels or particulate matter and other parameters, basically at any point in space and time. So they'll have to figure out exactly how to interpret all that data.
Yeah, I think previously this particular client they were going in manually and looking at this data on the website. So it's pretty time consuming, not a good use of your time really, and just to be doing that, but there's really no other way to do it. So, and I'll pull up, so that's just a screenshot of what it looks like. But again, it's web-based, and I'll pull it up to show you this.
Down, it kind of cuts through the fact where you're not having to look at all the data. I'm really only interested in the data around my facility, right? So we were able to do that aggregation process to kind of boil it down to what particular monitors and areas are of interest.
So the stars are the actual facilities, and then the the circles are gonna be, yeah, you can see it here. The circles are PM10, the squares are PM 2.5. And so, then you look here, you've got anything that's green is gonna be below the standards. Yellow is getting close, and then anything that's red is going to be over that limit. So that could possibly trigger a shutdown for the warehouse, like Dyron mentioned. But you can zoom in. So if you wanted to look at a particular region, we can try to find Texas here. Yeah, you can come in and look at a particular region. So the way this one's set up is if you have anything that turns red, so if you're over limit, we had multiple users are going to get alert on their phones. They're going to get text messages that says, you know, the location in Memphis, Tennessee, is showing a PM 2.5 above a threshold. And so then they can, you know, take the right actions to notify people in that plan, kind of make good decisions on, you know, how the impacts could happen and what they are. So again, yeah, it eliminates the requirement to constantly hawk EPA data on a database. You can kind of take that uncertainty out, and seems to be working. But yeah, I mean, it could be any type of data. This particular example was looking at particulate matter, but you know, if you had VOC data or you know, any kind of you know, air monitoring that's an issue, you can create this type of interface to track it essentially. Yeah, I cannot imagine just all day watching PM10 data come in, unless you just really like particulate matter data. I mean, maybe there's those people out there. Any questions on that?
Fence line data, for some of their fixed facilities. Kind of good to know what's coming into the facility from outside too. That's usually when I go check EPA air. That's when it's nice and hazy outside. I don't wonder what's causing this. It's usually some wildfire out hundreds of miles away.
Yeah, those are the examples we have. So that's us. If you got questions or keep in touch. A lot of these solutions are the software we use for the iPad applications is called FileMaker Pro. It's a free app. You can download it. And it's just really kind of simple database. So happy to answer any questions or stop after. Other than that, it is lunchtime, so we're not gonna keep you any longer than necessary.
What kind of backend, you said it's database, what style of database or technology? Is it Microsoft SQL or is it proprietary database?
Yeah, I think it's proprietary database, right? We used to be a FileMaker too.
It talks very well with SQL. So
Yeah. I think you need like ODBC connector for that. Yeah.
We translated it from one to the other. Well, what we'll do sometimes is package it up, like as an executable file, send it to the client, and they can have it on their system, and they don't have to have the infrastructure.
Yeah, the only problem we ran into with FileMaker, it seemed like it got expensive the more users you added. So, you know, we wanted to deploy it across our network, and that got pricey fast. But I imagine if you're just like kind of one off here and there, it's probably pretty reasonable.
It's not open source.
It's like close, right?
It's very close, yeah. You have to have a FileMaker server basically that's gonna host everything, so you gotta have a little bit of infrastructure on the back end. But aside from that, it's pretty open.
And this, we keep it separate, so it's a different server, like what we have.
Your production server,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, separate just for that, so that way. We've
And
got
it's updated periodically, and so that's, you know, there's a little bit of cost associated with it, but it's not onerous at all, especially for the simplicity, like call our digital people and say, hey, you know, we'd like to add this field, or we'd like to change this layout.
Yeah.
It's hours instead of days.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
months.
And some clients want us to manage it. They say, we want you to continue to host it and manage it and make changes. So anytime there's a change, they call us. Others are, you know, they want to do that. So it kind of just depends on what your data is, kind of how much you're gonna have to, you need to write and change it.
Makes sense. It's cool. Being able to spin up something that fast is, it can be a game changer.
Yeah,
People expect that. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, our clients are like, hey, this is what we do. We need some solutions here. You know, luckily we've got a strong digital team that's, I mean, I would never start.
Yeah.
I'm a science guy, I'm not, you know, so, anyway.
But we've learned to ask on the front end. I think
Yeah.
that's the big key.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, then you get in the middle of it, you got all this stuff, then you gotta pull that into some database. that's-
Yeah.
If you don't have good requirements to begin with, yeah,
Yeah,
it's a nightmare.
that's right.
And it's worth it.
Cool.
'cause it's
Thank you all. Thanks for stopping by.
thanks a lot, Ed.
Right, appreciate it, Mr. Moderator.
Yes, sir.
Right, get some luck. Everything works swimmingly. Thank you for your.